Well, it's not the most inspirational view, is it? But this is my second batch of sauerkraut, red sauerkraut or Rotkohl, as they say in German, according to my German friend. And I only made a very little bit last time. This time I've done a whole cabbage, which was 700 grams, 750 grams actually, after I'd peeled it and cored it. And to it I added two purple carrots, which have got orange centers, and that's the bits you can see. If I zoom in a bit, over there is, where's my finger? There. That's the center of the carrot. The carrots I've learnt are a bit of a sugar starter for this process. I've seen them grated, but I just chopped mine finely. And this time, instead of just using the traditional German accompaniment that I've learnt about, which is juniper berries, I've also added mustard seed. I made this last night. I actually made it last night because I had it out. And this is how much it made. It was 900 grams of vegetables. And I actually weighed out the salt this time at a 2.5% salinity, which is really quite mild. It turned out to be, I think it was 22.5 grams. And I held back about 7 grams of that for the end because having watched various videos, unless you're a perfectionist, you don't end up with enough self-brine. And it does take a few days, and I didn't really like that. Because after a few days, your sort of cabbage lid on top begins to dry out and discolor, which is not so nice. And you're wanting to keep this nice and moist the whole time. In actual fact, it's supposed to be anaerobic, which means no oxygen is supposed to get in. Well, in water, that's rather impossible because it's full of oxygen. But what happens is and already, although it's winter, let's say the weather's quite mild, it's probably about 18 degrees C in here, it's already fermenting this morning after less than, say, 12 hours. Which is quite quick, as quicker than it was a month ago when I made my first batch. But I enjoyed the red sauerkraut so much more than the white sauerkraut. Don't know if it's my imagination, but I find the red cabbage has got a much more subtle flavor. And I was tasting it. I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I was tasting my other sauerkraut and found that I couldn't quite place the taste because I'm not a sauerkraut eater. I don't have much experience of it. I think I've eaten it maybe once in my life. In fact, I cannot even remember eating it. But I realized it actually tastes like gherkins. Because to me, sauerkraut doesn't taste like cabbage at all. I didn't know what it tastes like. They say it's sour. It's not terribly sour, but it's got a certain taste to it, which is acquired. But I'm acquiring it primarily because I believe it's very healthy. And it's very nice as a relish. That's what I find it for. It's very nice as a relish, like with a burger. Or if you've got a rather plain meat dish, it's quite nice on the side. And I would normally have done pickled beetroot, which is done in vinegar and cooked. So fermenting is new to me, but I'm just enjoying the red sauerkraut because I can see myself eating this much more than the white sauerkraut, which I made, which I'm very happy with. But anyway, well, that's 4 minutes going on about my pickling process. I didn't say what I saved the 7 grams of salt for at the end. After I scrunch them up for about 5-10 minutes, we chop it up, scrunch it together, leave it for an hour or two, throw in your spices, which in this case was, 10 mils of good sprinkle of juniper berries and maybe a teaspoon of mustard seed. I didn't want to overdo it. I then made a cup, about a cup, 250 mils of brine with the remaining salt. Don't heat it because then you have to stand and wait for it to cool off. And it does dissolve quite fast if you use fine salt. And I have to tell you, I'm using iodized salt. And I didn't find it as a problem at all. Fermentation happened beautifully. And then I just topped it up It's amazing how much water or brine actually goes into the spaces. So having packed it down, and I use a spoon to press it in every few layers, every inch or so. You keep pressing it down, and then you add your brine at the end to top it up. And there's also a ripped up piece of leaf on top, like a cabbage cap. And that's just to keep the real stuff submerged. So that's the end of this video. I haven't shown you the process because I've shown that in a previous one. It's really very straightforward, but I'm just loving this idea of doing an ancient way of preparing food that's only made with salt, and is actually, what is nice about it's got a great crunch.